Darkcast Network. Welcome to the dark side of podcasting.
Darkcast Network. Come to the dark side of podcasts. We have cookies.
Cookies? Me love cookies.
Hey there, Rainbow Warriors. I'm CJ, host of Beyond the Rainbow, True Crimes of the LGBT. My episodes focus on crimes committed by and against the LGBTQ community. I've covered cases you probably have heard of, such as Matthew Shepard, Brandon Tina, and the Orlando Pulse nightclub massacre, as well as some lesser-known cases like the murder of Ray Hainish, the Australian gay beat murders, and the suspicious disappearance of Lisa Lynn Stone. I cover cases brought to me by listeners like Penny Brummer, who I believe was wrongfully convicted, taboo cases such as lesbian corrective rape and murder in South Africa, and Pray the Gay Away camps. I discuss gay serial killers, women who pretend to be men to hook up with other women, and trans murders. I'm opinionated and uncensored. I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but surely I'm someone's shot at tequila. No matter what your gender or orientation in life might be, please join me as I tackle rainbow crimes in search of unicorn justice. Remember, it's not a crime to be gay, unless you're a murderer.
Devil is on his way. Devil is on his way, motherfucker. The devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Fall to your knees. Devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way.
Mountain Murders is an Appalachian true crime podcast. Some content may not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
We say fuck a lot.
Hey, y'all, welcome back to Mountain Murders, Halloween week edition.
Moo.
I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan.
You're very haunted, Dylan.
I'm scared.
You're deranged, Dylan.
Man, if only what ends up on the editing floor could be a compilation for Mountain Murders, it'd be some good stuff.
Why? It's just you making the same 5 jokes.
It's not true. That was original stuff you put on the ground today. But anywho.
It was not. How many times can you say you're sassy in a podcast?
I'm not.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares that you're sassy or that you're sticky.
What about when I'm sticky and I'm sassy at the same time?
Nobody wants to talk about your penis.
Aw, except me.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Okay.
Your jokes are stale.
Oh, damn, like old bag of crackers.
Like that old bag of Halloween candy that's been rotting in the pantry for all this time.
Oh, have you ever eaten old Halloween candy?
Yeah.
Yeah, you find it and it's like just a partial bag that you forgot about.
And you're kind of like, oh, okay, this is cool. And then it's not good candy.
And then you find out candy can go stale.
Yeah.
And which you never knew because you never had candy around long enough to find out it goes stale.
And I was just going to say there's nothing worse. I mean, of course there are worse things, but it's just so disappointing when you like open a Reese cup, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah. And then you take a bite of it and it's
not
just
good.
Old and the peanut butter's all crumbly and
We need to do a
nasty
worldwide survey, or maybe it's just a nationwide, and see how many parents eat all the good chocolate out of their kids' candy when they're allegedly going through the candy, making sure there's nothing bad in there.
I would say every parent.
98%.
I would say every parent.
My kids never got Twix or Kit Kats or Snickers. I'd be like, y'all don't need that.
You would take all of the candy?
Well, I wouldn't take it. I would eat it.
That's taking it.
No, I wouldn't take it all.
You seized the children's candy.
Well, that's a perfect place.
I'm sure this is not the first time you've heard this, Dylan, but you're a bad parent.
I can make a movie. No, I'm just kidding. But
You're not.
No, I'm saying I would have me a couple of bites. I would leave them some of the good stuff. You know.
They're the ones that work so hard to get the candy too, Dylan.
Did they?
They have to run around.
I financed
They have
it.
to say trick or treat.
I had to dodge kids all night with a car and not hit them. I had to operate the motor vehicle, and while they're just la 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 enjoying their evening, like not a worry in the world. Our neighbors told us about one street near us here, where we live now, and that where allegedly the kids got really good candy and the adults got mini bottles. So
Like airplane bottles?
Yeah, of liquors.
Wow.
Yeah, I want to go trick or treat there.
I'd rather just go to the neighborhood that hands out the little free toothpastes. Is that weird?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, not everybody wants to brush their teeth 7 times a day, like you.
Why not? Well, those people are wrong.
You're a white tooth bitch.
I know I was really disappointed when my favorite electric toothbrush that I've had for like 10 years finally died. I can't believe it's lasted as long. I think it was purchased in like 2014.
Okay, so for one, that was a quality toothbrush. I'm sure it was a rather expensive one to last that long. And 2, you were in you're still not recovered from that.
I was attached to the toothbrush.
She found a replacement, but it's not of as good a quality, though it does have some modern updates.
Okay, here's what happened. I went the day my toothbrush died. It was like the day the music died, okay? I was like old Buddy Holly in the aisle, just tearful, crying. I buy a cheap electric toothbrush.
Yeah, because she
Well,
wants...
it was like $25. And I was like, oh, okay. I get this toothbrush. I bring it home. It's because it was like the only one they had that wasn't like $100. So I have the thing for like a week, and then it just dies and it won't charge.
Right.
It will not hold a charge. I ordered another one, and I happened to catch it on the Prime Deal days. Shout out to Amazon, who does not sponsor the show. And got a pretty decent one, and it has like multiple settings. It's got like a massage feature, and
Yeah, it has some modern updates.
Yeah, no, I like it. I'm pleased with it.
Okay, now look at this. So,
But I have to say, it was really sad for me to say goodbye to my toothbrush. I was listening to Boys to Men.
and we go.
Yeah, it's so hard
the
to say
end
goodbye to my Sonicare.
Of the road.
We had a lot of memories together.
Can't brush my
In my mouth.
teeth no more.
So like I said, I would be happy if I went to a neighborhood they were handing me out like free toothpastes, some dental floss.
So during our emergency disaster week, when Hurricane Helene tore through our area, we're going around. We're going to the gym to like charge phones, laptops, anything to have a little bit of power back up at the house. And here we are sitting in the lounge at a Planet Fitness with all our electronics and our little battery banks plugged up.
It's a judgment-free zone, Dylan. It says so on the wall.
No, listen. And there's Heather's toothbrush stood up at the end of the row of our stuff. She's trying to get a charge on this damn broke-ass toothbrush that won't work. And she was so sad. That's all she was worried about. See, that's why I like manual toothbrushes. Because you know what always works? My hand.
When you brush your teeth.
Oh, I'll be brushing my teeth.
I don't ever see you.
And that's because I do it surreptitiously.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, whatever, you gross mouth bitch. Are you ready to get into today's podcast? Now that we've been all over the place with Halloween and toothbrushes.
I already started. This is what I do, bro.
Did you just like ruin everything?
No. I'm the cement, man. I'm holding this thing together.
Well, Dylan, I have what I think is a fascinating true crime story.
You talking about this week's episode?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. I'm
Well,
talking about 6 weeks from now.
Dude, you have an amazing story for today, I think.
You are so dumb.
I know.
Sometimes I just wonder, how do you function in the world, Dylan?
Well, have you seen The Public? I mean, I'm
You
like
fit
a
right
genius
in.
out there.
You fit right in. Sometimes I just think, you dumb as hell. I just don't even know what I'm going to do with you.
Anyway.
I told your mama yesterday, your mama was texting me, and I said, I didn't know I took your son into Ray's. And even your mama was like, Like,
Yeah.
she knows. She knows you're dumb as hell, too.
Well, it don't make me dumb.
Are you sure?
I just enjoy being comfortable.
Well, I'm glad you're comfortable. Whatever that means. Now, if you're ready to get your shit together, let's talk about today's story.
Oh, I'm ready to start.
Suzanne Cummings. Now, it looks like Susan, but it's Suzanne.
Of course it is. She's born in Monaco.
Suzanne Cummings was born July 21st, 1962 in Monte Carlo, Monaco, to a billionaire arms dealer and a former CIA agent named Samuel Cummings and his Swiss wife, Irmgard.
That doesn't sound real.
Well, first of all, who lives in Monaco? Like, who's born and raised there? Is that even a real place? I just thought it was like a setting in a James Bond movie.
Yeah, I know, right? There's locals.
And then you have a billionaire arms dealer who sounds like a character from a James Bond movie. And of course he would be married to his Swiss wife, right?
Of course she's Swiss.
Suzanne was a fraternal twin with her sister Diana, which is actually spelled Diana.
Shut up. They're going... It's Diana, but it's they have to stop everyone who reads her name and say, no, it's Diana.
Suzanne and Diana.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Very pretentious. Suzanne and Diana, again, they're fraternal twins, so they're not identical twins. Okay, so Samuel had made a fortune buying and selling surplus weaponry. He founded Interarms in 1953, one of the richest men in the world at this time. At one point, Samuel controlled more than 90% of the world's private gun trade, earning about $100 million annually.
My God.
In the 1950s. I mean, that's a lot of money by today's standards, but that's an insane amount of money by 1950 standards.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you adjust that for inflation, that's even way more money. And I mean, at that level, you're funding private wars and different conflicts around the world. I mean, how can you do that and have a clean conscience about it?
Well, he went on to build the Winchester Mystery House.
Oh, okay.
No. His business operated in Virginia, England, Denmark, Austria, and South Africa. Residing in the tax haven Monaco, Cummings provided a grand, luxurious life to his wife and twin girls. Samuel had been born into money. He was actually born in 1927. His father made a fortune selling mineral water. The family had immense wealth. They had servants, mansion, multiple cars, until the stock market crashed in 1929, and it left their family penniless. Samuel Cummings' father had never really worked a day in his life, and he did not adjust well to this newfound poverty.
So what was that, Black Tuesday? Is that right? Or Black Friday? So that was the big crash, or is that the Great Depression? 29.
Yeah. I'm glad you vaguely remember history class.
Yeah, I think that something happened. So they have all their money tied up in stock options and things like that. These devices that create wealth when in reality they're non-tangible. You know, they're not real. And boom, all their money's all of a sudden gone. And then the patriarch, now he's actually having to work. Is that right?
Yeah, and he doesn't know what to do because he's never
worked.
had a job. He doesn't really know what to do. Samuel's mother, she was a resilient and resourceful woman. She had this idea to flip properties, which had been seized by the bank due to the Great Depression. She made a deal with banks, and the family earned a modest income flipping properties. They moved constantly and lived in these rundown homes while working to fix them up. I mean, it's not an ideal life, but they're surviving. They're making a little money when no one else is.
So she's flipping houses before that was cool.
Yeah. She's like the original gentrifier, the OG. When Samuel was 8 years old, his 49-year-old father died from a massive heart attack. Samuel claimed it was the stress of losing it all. After his father's death, the family moved to Washington, D.C., where his mother earned enough money to pay for private schools and ensure that her children had the best education possible. His mother's drive and hard work shaped who he became and also taught him about strict budgeting, as Samuel Cummings was a frugal billionaire.
A frugal billionaire.
Just wait till we talk about Suzanne's frugalness.
Well,
frugality.
That's how the saying goes. You know, regular folk worry about getting money. Rich people worry about keeping it.
Yes. I guess that's what they say.
That's how my saying goes.
In 1960, Samuel married Irmgard and moved to Monaco, home to the casino and the royal family. And of course, we all know Grace Kelly, an American who married a prince. We have Princess Grace. It was a garish area with a fairy tale setting where the ultra-wealthy, powerful, and beautiful people gathered. Suzanne grew up in a 14-room flat on the southernmost edge of France, only 21 kilometers from the Italian border, very close to the celebrated casino. It's just a short distance away. And they had views of yachts in the glistening harbor and views of the mountains of Corsica nearby. Samuel traveled extensively for work, and his daughter spent little time with him. The fraternal twins were always the center of attention wherever they went. They were fluent in French, which was their primary tongue, English, and then they learned German. They were close growing up, of course, and developed twin talk, which is pretty common for twins, the secret communication. There were stark differences in the girls. Suzanne always felt that her sister possessed a sparkle. She was confident, outspoken, popular. And while Suzanne preferred solitude, Deanna, sorry.
It's Diana.
Diana. I know every time I see her name, I'm like, I want to call her Dirty Diana. Diana was socializing with other kids, hanging out, having fun. And Suzanne would spend time alone in her bedroom. So very different personalities.
So introvert,
extrovert,
outrovert.
What's an outrovert?
It's the opposite of an introvert. So you have two very different twins, which I wonder how common that is for them to have very almost opposite personalities.
I think it's probably not unusual.
Okay.
I mean, you see siblings with opposite personalities.
Yeah.
You see couples with opposite personalities.
That's true. Someone's awesome, one's not. And
one is smart, one's not.
Yeah.
That happens.
Well, honey, don't do that. Don't beat yourself up. But so I think I wonder if twins sometimes go out of their way to be different.
Sometimes I wonder if you go out of your way to be different.
I thought you was going to say dumb, and I was like, no, I don't have to try.
Well, that's reassuring.
This is natural.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm not a twin. You're not a twin,
right.
So I don't know. But I'm guessing that you would maybe kind of want your own identity.
Right.
Separate from your sibling.
Yeah.
Which is probably even more prevalent with identical twins.
Yeah. But, I mean, even fraternal twin. Is it paternal?
Fraternal.
Fraternal twins. You're born at the same time. You're raised at the same time. So I could see you vying for attention. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because there's always the other ones here, always hanging around.
Yeah, I know how that feels. You're always around.
Well, maybe I have to come back here. Is where my clothes are.
I need to rehome him. If there's anybody out there.
There's a small rehoming fee.
No, there's not.
What?
I'll pay you to take him.
Well, do you know what? Look, you know how irresponsible that is to rehome a husband with no fee? Because anybody.
No, like I said, I'm paying someone to take you off my hands.
They have no skin in the game. They might not do right by me.
Look, I hate to break it to you, but I don't think there are any takers on this offer. Irmgard was worried this would cause problems for Suzanne later on because she was so introverted, quiet, preferred solitude.
Yeah, but sometimes that's just how a person is. You know, what can you do?
The family gathered in the mountains of Switzerland at Villars in the Bernese Alps every summer. It was less touristy than Monte Carlo and not as glamorous. The girls really enjoyed this time outdoors. They took riding lessons and frolicked. I like to frolic. Do you frolic?
I don't have a lot of time for frolicking.
Frolicking feels pretty good. Suzanne, always enjoyed like boy stuff. She was a bit of a tomboy, which included target shooting with her father, and she also developed his love of fast cars. By the time she was 5, Suzanne had started learning about firearms. Samuel encouraged independence in his daughters. He taught them they were rich, but they should be humble, they should be philanthropic and kind, and that substance over image mattered, which I believe are important lessons to teach your children.
Yeah.
Of course, there are sometimes jealousies among twins or siblings in general. Children assume their roles as a leader and a follower, and there seemed to be this unspoken rivalry between the girls. Diana.
From henceforth, they'll be known as Diana.
Diana overcompensated her feelings of guilt because she was considered the prettier, more likable twin by being totally devoted to her sister Suzanne. If she was invited, Diana always insisted that Suzanne be allowed to come too. The family had never really entertained the idea of moving back to the United States, but a new rule had stated that one must live in the country for 2 years between the ages of 15 to 26 to obtain a U.S. passport. The girls were not eligible for Swiss citizenship since they were born abroad, and in Monaco, foreigners had to have 5 generations born there in the country to be citizens.
Wow.
So they were kind of like kids without a country. In a twist of fate, the girls were granted British passports, and they were given dual American-British citizenship. During their teen years, Diana garnered attention from the boys and was considered to be the beautiful sister. She also enjoyed wearing makeup and dresses. Suzanne was, again, a bit of a tomboy, and she didn't like dresses or makeup. At 12, they were sent away to boarding school, and then both girls attended Mount Vernon College, which was affiliated with George Washington University, their father's alma mater. The twins studied alongside daughters of diplomats and ambassadors. Samuel had an office and an apartment in Old Town Alexandria, Virginia, but he purchased Ashland Farm, which is located in Warrenton, Virginia, in 1984. The girls preferred being out of the city and really appreciated country life, so after they graduated from college, they moved to the farm. The historic estate was founded in the 1700s and had been a stagecoach depot at one point.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Right? In 1724, the Holtzclaw family built a home and resided there until 1924. So for 200 years, the same family lived on this property.
So I'm still thinking about you got to be 5 generations deep to be considered a citizen of Monaco. Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. I wonder if they have like a I wonder if that's still true today.
I don't know.
Or if they had to loosen that up, to keep their population up. Cuz Japan's very insular like that. They're not real big on granting visas or whatever citizenship, yeah, to other foreign nationals, if you will, and it's caused a problem. They're actually their population is dwindling.
Well, some countries definitely have stricter immigration policies than others.
Right.
I mean, hey, here you can just come on in.
Well,
Come on in, we'll give you a check. Samuel.
Maybe if I go over there and then come back in, I can get a check.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe you could change your name to Suzanne.
What would be my fancy rich name?
Well, you could just go by Robert.
Robert? It's not even better like Sir Reginald? Can be Sir Reginald?
Well, you could just be like Robert. We could call you Bob.
Bob.
Bob sounds like a guy who's got a little jingle in his pocket.
There's been a lot of rich Bobs.
Right.
Okay, I can just be Bob.
Like the guy who owned Bob Evans.
Bobby Pache.
Isn't that what the spam callers always ask for?
Well, no, one famously
instead of Robert Packer.
Yeah, one famously asked for Robert Pouchet, and I don't know how he got that from Robert Packer.
But then your friend started calling you Bobby Pache, and it's stuck.
My friends started calling me Bobby. It was a black guy, and I had like 7 nicknames with them. Because that's how it goes with black dudes.
You got a bunch of nicknames?
Yeah.
Samuel purchased the 350-acre Ashland farm and also the LeBaron farm in Culpeper County, which was 800 acres.
It's just a small estate.
Despite the 2 houses, the sisters decided to live together at Ashland Farm. Suzanne stayed in the main house, and Diana lived in a guest cottage. The sisters immersed themselves into farming activities. And if Suzanne had, not had a huge trust fund, she likely would have become a veterinarian. I mean, if she actually had to work for a living.
Okay, so she really liked the animals.
She's a big animal lover. Susanna rose at 5 a.m. every morning and tended to the 24 rescue cats, which were allowed to roam inside the manor house.
24 cats?
Yeah.
Well, it's not, you reckon it's a pretty big house, but that seems like a lot of cats.
I'm sorry, but you know that house stinks.
But,
Somebody better be changing them litter boxes like multiple times a day.
dude, you know how that's a full-time job, because every time I've ever tried to go help at an animal rescue, they put me on litter box duty.
My allergies could never in this house. Ever, ever. She tended to cows, horses, even bottle feeding the newborn livestock. Suzanne always seemed to prefer the company of animals to humans. Deanna was more social. She entered animals in steeplechase events and enjoyed fox hunting, as Jackie Kennedy had done. In the horse world, social interaction played a large role, and Deanna fared better. Deanna loved to host tailgate parties at the local steeplechase and attended other events. She would provide a spread of food and drinks. Suzanne rarely attended her sister's tailgate parties, and if she did, she hovered awkwardly in the background, unable to make small talk. Charming Deanna was always invited to dinner parties and, events. She insisted that Suzanne tag along. However, most people found Suzanne to be off-putting, and her personality made them uncomfortable. Just the fact that she was so weird socially. She avoided eye contact. She would hide behind her hair.
Oh.
Look down at the ground. Would speak very quietly if spoken to.
She was like, yes, thank you for inviting me to this party.
Yeah.
While she stares at the ground and her bangs are hanging down
She
over her face.
never joined in conversations. I'm almost wondering if maybe Suzanne is a neurodivergent queen.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it goes beyond just being a little bit shy. I think, I don't think it's her fault, right? Some people are like this. But, a lot of people don't know how to react to someone who acts like this. And oftentimes they just they label them weird, and they don't try to get to know them. You know what I mean? They just kind of be like, oh, God, like what's wrong with them? When it's just how they are. And that's okay for you to be, shy or keep to yourself, if you will.
Yeah.
I was shy at one point in my life.
I don't believe it.
It's true.
You've never been shy.
I was the boy in a corner.
I don't believe it.
I was over there with baby.
I don't believe it. But we all know you a damn lie. So.
No, but that's true. I was shy.
When?
What? I mean, back before I met you. You brought me out of my shell, baby.
Gosh,
You
I'm
tried to put me
so
back.
sorry for that.
Trying to put me back in it.
Yeah, you're like a little hermit crab. I'll find you another shell to get in.
You threw my shell away.
Now, despite this, Suzanne had a passion for animals. She did compete in equestrian events such as dressage, which is considered like dance on horseback.
I think I've seen that before. It's like almost like a floor routine, but you're on a horse. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm being for real. I think I've seen it. I mean, not in person. I wasn't at an equestrian event.
Just stop talking. Jumpers events, which is clearing fences in a timed event like the fastest wins. And then there are hunters, which is more about form than speed. Suzanne didn't care for the fox hunts, but occasionally joined Deanna for those. And I mentioned before, Suzanne also loved cars. Fast cars. She liked fast cars.
She's much like Tracy Chapman.
She had a Toyota Turbo. High performance, luxury foreign and collectible cars had become another interest Suzanne had borrowed from her father. Samuel Cummings was known for telling people, like, he would meet them somewhere. Like, oh, I'll meet you here. And he would tell them, I'll be driving a Volkswagen. And then he would arrive in like a shiny Porsche or a Lamborghini and then grin and be like, how do you like my Volkswagen?
Oh, yeah, whatever. That's rich people jokes.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
also corny.
It's pretty stupid.
It's like a dad joke.
It's like, this is my Volkswagen. What do you
Yes.
think?
Beep, beep. Suzanne also drove her cars at high speed. She cared little for authority or rules, and she didn't seem to care if a speeding ticket was issued.
Yeah, why would she? They could literally buy the town.
Suzanne had seen an ad in the local paper for polo lessons at Great Meadow Equestrian Center, which was not far from her farm. On the first day she signed up for lessons, Suzanne met Juan Salinas Bentley, who had become a sensation after winning the United Polo Association's President's Cup in Lexington, Kentucky. He was one of few American-born polo instructors who spent summers in Warrenton, which was the hometown of his wife. Most of the polo players divided their time between Florida and places like Virginia. Great Meadow was home to the prestigious Virginia Gold Cup steeple races, which drew between 50 to 60,000 people.
Really?
Yeah.
There's that many rich people.
And Dylan, since I don't know much about polo, and I know you definitely probably don't know much about polo.
Oh, I know about steeplechases, though. I've watched those as well.
Good for you.
Yeah. It's YouTube. I've really seen you act like I haven't seen that horses dance.
Act like anything.
No, I can tell.
I'm just trying to tell you about polo.
So tell me more about polo, because I know a lot.
Because the only thing you know about the United Polo Association is you can buy them shirts at damn Burlington Coat Factory.
I was going to say that guy was he's on like the cologne bottles I can't afford.
Look, polo is one of the oldest team sports in history, dating back over 2,000 years. It originated in Persia, which is modern-day Iran. It's known as the sport of kings due to its association with nobility and royalty. Polo is played on horseback with 2 teams of 4 players each. The goal is to score by driving a small wooden or plastic ball into the opposing team's goal using a long-handled mallet. Players are divided into positions based on their offensive and defensive roles. So player number 1 is the primary offensive player with the aim of scoring goals.
So they handle the ball.
Yeah, I suppose so. Number 2 is like a versatile player, both attacking and defending. Number 3 is often the most skilled and strategic player, similar to a team captain. And then player number 4 is the main defensive player. A polo field is usually about 300 yards long and 160 yards wide, roughly the size of 9 football fields.
Damn.
The goals are 8 yards apart on each end. Traditionally, the ball is made of wood. Modern polo balls are typically made from plastic for durability. The mallet is a long, flexible stick made from bamboo or composite materials with a wooden head used to hit the ball.
This sounds insufferable. I mean, maybe I should watch a match and see how exciting it is.
A typical polo match consists of 4 to 6 chukkers, which a chukker is like a period, each lasting 7 minutes. After each chukker, players switch horses to ensure that each horse remains fresh and safe from exhaustion. There is a break between chukkers for the players to rest and strategize. So polo is a really fast-paced game with rules that focus on the safety of players and horses. Some of these rules are the right-of-way, which is a fundamental rule to prevent collisions. It is determined by the direction of the ball and the line that the player riding for the ball must follow. Hooking. Players can use their mallets to interfere with the opponent's swing as long as it's done safely within the line of the ball. And ride-offs are similar to body checks in hockey. Players can use their horses to push opponents away from the ball.
Well, yeah, I was figuring that's probably your main defensive strategy is basically getting in the way of the opposing player.
And the horses used in polo are often referred to as polo ponies. They're quick, agile, highly trained. They're usually thoroughbreds or a crossbreed known for their speed and stamina. Players often use multiple ponies throughout a match to prevent overexertion and ensure optimal performance. So polo is really popular in countries like Argentina, which we will be discussing Argentine players today. The United Kingdom, the U.S., and India. Argentina is particularly famous for producing some of the best polo players and horses in the world. And the sport is associated with luxury and aristocracy. Many famous events like the Argentine Open or the Vive Cliquot Polo Classic attract a lot of celebrities and social elites. But it's a game that really requires both horsemanship and team strategy. So it's kind of unique among team sports because you have to be like really good on a horse and being a good rider. But then you have to have the tactics of the field sports and knowledgeable about like equestrian culture. So, I mean, there's kind of a lot that goes into polo. And I guess having researched this case, it makes me respect the sport like in a way I hadn't before, really.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it definitely is. I mean, you have to be highly skilled to play the game, and it's very dangerous.
It sounds very unique, but you're out there crashing around on these fast, big horses.
Well, yeah, you got to be able to control their speed
And just having knowing or having horsemanship, if you will, is a very big, very unique skill in it of its own. Right. Just be able to ride the hell out of a horse.
Yeah, absolutely.
So wow, it's kind of interesting. I was kidding around about polo. It sounds pretty cool though.
Yeah, I actually watched a few clips on YouTube.
Yeah.
Just like, okay, see if I can figure this out.
Yeah.
And I have to say I thought it was kind of exciting.
Really?
I would like to go to a match.
I worked with a person at the paper mill before it closed down who was, this is not quite the same, but he almost made the Olympic team he was from Egypt for water polo.
I played water polo, intramural sports, baby.
Yeah, I played Marco Polo every summer.
I think you still do sometimes.
Pretty big.
I saw you out in the kiddie pool playing.
Well, I get lost. And I'll be like, Heather. And she'll be like, Dylan. I'll be like, Heather.
Oh, well, you just do that in Walmart.
Yeah.
Now, Juan signed Susan up for 10 lessons, which was like the standard package their polo school offered. Polo seemed to be a way for Suzanne to express passion that was missing from her personal life. Juan noted that on the field, Suzanne seemed like she would cry if he shouted commands at her. Suzanne viewed feedback as scolding, and he didn't really expect her to return after her initial 10 lessons.
Well, I've got to say, given her personality quirks, if you want to call them that, it sounds like you'd have to be a pretty big presence to do something like polo. You know what I mean? It doesn't sound like it's for meek, which most sports aren't, period. But it doesn't sound like it's for her. You know what I mean? So I guess I'm not surprised that he assumed maybe she would never be back after, going through the lessons.
Yeah, when she completed the first 10 lessons, Suzanne signed up for an additional 10 lessons, and she ended up playing through the season, much to his surprise. In May of 1994, Suzanne returned to the Willow Run Polo School at Great Meadows. By that time, Juan had moved on to the Hamptons and was replaced by Jean-Marie Tiron. Jean-Marie noted that Suzanne had the horsemanship but lacked skills like hitting the ball. A lot of Americans had difficulty playing polo, a sport which required pushing ponies to their limits. Most Americans were inclined to treat the horses like pets rather than work horses. And that's actually going to be an issue that we talk about later in our story.
So these are working and sporting animals, and they're treated as such. That doesn't necessarily mean they're treated badly. It's just in the view of an animal lover, they may think you're being hard on the animal or cruel to it in ways.
Yeah.
Okay.
It didn't take long for Jean-Marie to sense that Suzanne had a crush on him. He politely shrugged it off. But Suzanne showed up at 8 a.m. and stayed way beyond dark. And he started to wonder, doesn't she have anything else to do? It was unusual that a woman of Suzanne's means and social standing had zero social life. She preferred to clean stalls and care for horses over fine dinners and luxury shopping trips to the city. Most nights, as Suzanne lingered in the stables, Jean-Marie would have to remind her it was 10 p.m. and time to leave. Then, hushed whispers began. People speculated that Jean-Marie and Suzanne were having an affair.
Look.
Because she is, spending so much time hanging around this place.
I would be weirded out if that's a lot of hanging around.
Oh, he's weirded out by it. We'll get to that.
Because, everywhere you turn, there she is. You know what I mean? Mucking out a stable.
Hey.
Covered in horse manure.
Hey, you like my rubber boots?
Horse pee stinks really bad.
Okay. I haven't spent a lot of time around
You ever
horses.
mucked a stable out?
Therefore, I've not really had a horse pee on me either.
Well,
sounds kinky.
I've never had a horse pee on me. Gosh, that had to be a lot of pee. But I do know that mucking a stable out, when you flip over that layer, like the underneath, it make your eyes water.
I've not spent much time around horses, I'll be honest. My uncle had horses when I was a kid, but I didn't really do work. I mean, I wasn't really around them much.
Oh, you were like Suzanne.
No. And then my mom and her ex-husband had a pair of horses. But again, I wasn't like mucking out a stable or anything.
They're scary. Horses scare me.
I spent time on a farm as a kid, but it was with cows.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't have a lot of experience with horses. I find them to be intimidating.
They scare me,
They
dude.
kind of freak me out a little bit.
You know, I'm not spent a whole lot of time around horses, but little bit I did. I'm just not comfortable with like being on them or
Me
around
either.
them. It's just a huge animal,
They terrify
dude.
me. I don't want to be kicked in the face.
Nah, and they got a
I
big
don't
ol'-
want them to. I watched Gone with the Wind as a kid, and then I was convinced I would be thrown like the little girl Bonnie, and my neck would break or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was never a horse girl.
I never understood why they got it's dangerous on being on a horse is kind of dangerous, right? Ask Christopher Reeves, you know, and but they got women back in the day riding English saddle or whatever, where their legs are kind of thrown to the side and they're not even like fully mounted on the horse. I never understood that. Like, what in the world? Just let her put some pants on and ride the horse properly, the safe way.
I agree.
Gosh, you don't see no dudes riding around like that.
Why don't you just invent a car so I don't have to ride a horse at all?
Yeah.
She signed up for polo school 5 days a week. And then 2 days, she signed up for classes at Altamira in Charlottesville, which was on a Saturday and a Monday, which happened to be Jean-Marie's only days off from the Willow Pond School. And guess what? He taught classes at the Altamira school on those 2 days off.
So seeing him 5 days a week at the one school
not
wasn't
enough.
enough. She has to go follow him over to another school.
Yes.
Nah, dude, hold on a second. This is too much. This is too much.
Suzanne asked Jean-Marie if he wanted to drive together to Charlottesville. He was reluctant, but thought maybe catching a 30-minute nap before teaching would be a good thing. He's so busy and doesn't even have a day off. Guy's tired. He's trying to look for a silver lining in this proposition. He offered to pay for the fuel, and, she was like, oh, no, don't worry about that. Jean-Marie was worried this would further fuel speculation that they were sleeping together. And he also learned that Suzanne liked to drive fast, and she would scare him to death.
Oh.
He did not like her driving. She just had no regard for law enforcement or rules, and it terrified him. Then, after they've been commuting to the school for a minute, she asks Jean-Marie if he would like to go to Sarasota, Florida with her for the winter season to play polo. It caught him off guard, especially when she said they could share an apartment together.
Wow, she's been awfully forward.
Jean-Marie and his girlfriend Jennifer had been alarmed when Suzanne kept showing up at bars and restaurants where they were together. She would sit in full view of the couple as if she was watching them. Suzanne's behavior gave Jean-Marie the creeps. Jean-Marie would often have to reassure his girlfriend that there was nothing going on with Suzanne and that he was not interested in her whatsoever. But Jennifer noticed, this woman seems to have a very unhealthy obsession with you.
Yeah, she's sitting 3 tables away just staring at you.
Yeah.
Just through her bangs.
Eating her little sad meal by herself.
Yeah.
Then Jean-Marie heard that Suzanne had begun a relationship with a Mexican stable hand. But it didn't take long for that fellow to break up with Suzanne. This guy described her as cheap, stating that Suzanne would offer to buy him dinner, then insist he order the least expensive item on the menu. He was so embarrassed by the frugality and her cheapness, and he ended up breaking up with her. And this is a stable hand. This is a guy who's probably not making a whole lot of money, but he's like, dude, you are so cheap, it's embarrassing.
Yeah, you're below my station in life, Suzanne. So who in the hell is like, hey, I would never say that to someone. I'll buy you dinner and then openly discuss how I want you to get the cheapest item.
I'll just buy my own dinner because I'm going to get what I want. Nobody's going to tell me what I can order from the menu.
No,
it's not unreasonable. You're going to go out and order the lobster, right?
Right.
But I'm also not going to just order some crackers and water.
I would take you to Applebee's and I'd tell you to get whatever you want.
I am not going to go with you.
Off the 2 for $20.
I'm refused to go to Applebee's.
It even comes with dessert.
I'm sorry. It's not very good food. I don't want to eat that.
And you get $2 drinks too, I think.
I'll just order the crackers and the water.
crackers and water?
Yeah. Like I'm telling you, last time I went to Applebee's, I'm pretty sure I got food poisoning. That was like 15 years ago. I've never been back.
Oh, it's improved since then.
I don't believe that. I do not.
You know, some people like Applebee's.
Well, good for those people, Dylan.
But I always wondered how they could be doing. They do a lot for a little bit, you know. So
well, that's my thing. Any place that has some meal deal where it's like, oh, you get 3 entrees and an appetizer, and it's just $9.99. I'm like that. That quality does not sound good.
You gotta wonder what you're eating.
And I'll prefer to just stay home and eat me some pinto beans in a crock pot. Okay.
You can eat it here. You can have one for later, and then you can have one for tomorrow. All for $5.99.
Yeah, I don't know about any of that.
And we get you a drink. Yeah.
And what about those weird? What are they? Riblets?
I don't know.
I mean, what are those even?
It's mechanically processed meat, right? Mechanically separated.
Is it like basically the same thing that's a McRib? Maybe.
Well, you know, it's just like a mush, you know, like all the tidbits and ends and pieces chewed up by some machine and then squirted out into some shape.
Why's it gotta be squirted out?
Oh, you know it's getting squirted out. It's getting into some riblet shaped thing, and then there's like fake black lines like it's been on a grill. It's just all this is chemicals.
I'd rather eat dinosaur-shaped chicken nuggets.
Well, yeah, those are good though.
Jean-Marie had noticed a discrepancy in his pay from the Altamira school, and he wasn't really accusing the lady who owned it of like shorting him. He just thought, well, maybe there's some kind of accounting error. He's not really sure.
So he started digging into it.
Well, one day when he was taking care of the paperwork because the owner was out of town, he saw that Suzanne was not paying the full price for lessons. She had only been paying for use of the horses at the school, but not for Jean-Marie's instruction.
So she's hanging around 24/7. But basically every day he's at work, every minute of every day, there she is. But she's not even paying for his services.
No.
As an instructor.
Well, he confronts Suzanne about this, and she explains since she was driving them to Charlottesville, she was only paying for the horses. Jean-Marie thought she was a spoiled brat and told her, you owe me $600 for lessons. Suzanne told him, quote, when I feel I owe, I pay, but I don't feel I owe you.
See, I hate people who do stuff like this. They make an offer, talk you into something even. You know, kind of like he didn't seek out her commuting with him or paying for the gas. And I got to imagine that the little bit of gas doesn't offset the cost of his lessons. You know what I'm saying?
No. Jean-Marie, who's already over Suzanne's shit, grew pretty angry with this response. And he told her, quote, congratulations then, you've earned enough credits to graduate from Polo school. He typed up a certificate and told her basically, don't come back.
Dude.
You're not welcome here. Fuck off.
I like that. That was pretty slick.
But this didn't matter because Suzanne had already set her sights on someone else.
She's done with him.
Roberto Villegas was a top player in the circuit. He was a handsome, dark-haired Argentine player known for his quirky sense of humor. Roberto was a jokester and always pranking his friends. A lot of people found his sense of humor to be strange or a lot to take. Sometimes men would get fighting mad at him, but it usually ended in a handshake because he's like push pranks almost too far kind of guy. Roberto was also known to be kind and generous. After matches, Roberto provided asado, which is an Argentine barbecue, to the grooms and players. And grooms are kind of like the stable boys. They get the horses ready, that kind of thing. So he would bring all this meat and cook this big meal for everybody after the matches.
Yeah.
Roberto also reportedly loved women. The handsome player was known as a constant flirt. And Dylan, I don't know if you knew this, but Polo has its own groupies.
Really?
Yeah, there are women who are looking to land a player, even if it's just for a one-night stand.
Oh, wow.
When Jean-Marie sensed Roberto might be interested in Suzanne, he warned his buddy to steer clear of her. But Roberto told him that he found Suzanne attractive and interesting. She was a fresh change from the other women because she shared this love of horses, and he'd really been unable to find someone else who connected with the animals as much as he did.
He was tired of being treated like a piece of meat. You know what I'm saying? And he's finally made a real connection with Suzanne.
Sure. Jean-Marie knew his friend had just gotten out of a long-term relationship with a woman named Kelly Quinn. Kelly had come from a wealthy Florida family, was well-educated, and had been very supportive of the polo player's transient lifestyle. For 4 years, Kelly had traveled with Roberto up and down the East Coast in pursuit of his career, spending the winters in Florida, summers in places like Virginia, just wherever he ended up playing.
I didn't know there was such a big polo scene in America, honestly.
Well, and you have to find like a sponsor or a patron to like put you up.
Yeah, because
pay
this is
for you.
expensive, man.
It is very expensive.
It's not like you're just hauling a duffel bag full of sports equipment around. You know, these are horses, which are notoriously expensive to keep up.
Oh, yeah.
They eat you out of house and home, veterinarian care.
It's like having teenage girls.
It's a big deal. And you got to haul them around. And you're traveling with multiple 4 and 5, 6 horses.
Yeah.
So you can, use them. It said that in your description of polo that they like to use one per period, basically, and there's multiple periods. So I could only imagine what it costs to go through a season.
Kelly had wanted to settle down and start a family, and this topic had really soured their relationship. So when they broke up, she stayed behind in Florida, and Roberto went on to Virginia without her this time.
I must play polo.
Roberto had agreed to join the Rappahannock team owned by Bill Fannin because they needed a pro to help them qualify for the U.S. Polo Association's President Cup competition. So that's why he went to Virginia. That's how he ends up in Virginia, and then kind of ends up at Great Meadow and teaching at the polo school to supplement income, where he meets Suzanne.
I must play polo, Suzanne.
On the polo field, Roberto was fiercely competitive and exhibited a high level of aggression needed in the sport. People refer to polo as a blood sport because it is extremely physical. Enormous strength is required and coordination because a player not only plays the game, but they must control this large animal traveling at high speeds. And it's a game where being good is not enough.
Wow.
You have to be better than good.
You have to be great?
Pretty much.
Just to be regular in polo?
It sounds pretty fucking hard, dude.
Well, no, it sounds impossible. Honestly, you're on this big animal and you're controlling it in very high stakes, precise maneuvering around a bunch of other big animals. And you need to have a coordination to hit this. I got to imagine the ball's small in the scale to everything else with this long wooden pole, basically. And you got to strategize almost in like chess as far as, how you want to make your way down the field. And
yeah, there's way more to the game than I ever realized, honestly. So I've learned something this week.
Maybe we should start playing polo.
Maybe not. What are we going to play them on the little 25-cent horses that you can put a quarter in and ride outside like an IGA grocery
We'll get
store?
one of those croquet kits from the Goodwill or something.
No, I'd do that.
And but we'll do a Mountain Murders version. We'll have a blow up horse and we'll play some polo.
Oh, I thought maybe we would wear different colored blazers and reenact scenes from Heathers.
We could go to the
my favorite 80s movie.
playground, the horses on the big spring.
Well, that's what I said. You put a quarter in.
Well, I was talking about the ones that are in the ground at the playground.
Dude, I love those. They're really fun.
You don't see any those. Speaking of that, you don't see that anymore. The little rides outside the dollar store and stuff like that. I wonder why that is.
They have a few at the outdoor outlets.
Do they really?
Yeah. I know because our daughters insisted they get on the pony even though they're teenagers.
Way too big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they were just trying to make a TikTok or something. But in Florida, Roberto was a small fish in a big pond full of Argentine players. But back home in Argentina, these players might be considered average or even below average. But they were shining stars in the United States where there were very few homegrown players.
So these are people who...
So even if you're a C- polo player in Argentina, you can come to the United States and be considered amazing.
Because they've been around polo all their life, basically.
Well, yeah. And there's just not that many people who play here. Roberto was one such player. He grew up in poverty in a poverty-stricken rural village in Argentina, and he had no real experience playing polo. He was born October 22nd, 1959 in Chaján, which is like in the Plains region. His father was a poor farmhand, a cattle rancher's helper who could barely afford to take care of his wife and 2 children. They lived in a cramped bungalow with no running water, no electricity, no telephone, and they also didn't own a vehicle. So Roberto learned to ride horses from an early age because it was their only means of travel.
And we call that type of housing a quaint cottage.
In the village, Roberto played soccer and sometimes polo, and he had these aspirations to be a professional polo player, but these dreams were far greater than his family's means because, again, polo is not a poor man's sport. Costs a lot of money to play polo. And so he kind of knew that, like, it's probably not going to happen for me. But at 21, Roberto was offered an amazing opportunity to move to Florida with an Argentine polo player to work as a groom. He spoke no English and was barely literate in Spanish. Roberto owned only a few pairs of jeans and a pair of work boots. That's all he brought to the United States with him because he had nothing. So poor. But he was excited for an opportunity in America. He was a hard worker. But Dylan, this is really sad. All these other people that were like involved, the other grooms and folks around the scene, kind of made fun of Roberto because he had green teeth, which earned him the oh-so-creative nickname Green Teeth.
Green teeth?
Due to chemical stains from treated water in his village.
Oh.
Yeah.
Dang.
Now I'm like, they couldn't come up with something more creative than green teeth?
Well, that's how asshole bullies are. They're not very smart usually.
Hey, you got a big blue tooth. I mean, it's just so stupid.
Your teeth are green. I mean, what is that even?
I don't know.
And they know damn well what it's from. You know, some kind of half-ass treatment of the water.
You got a blue and a green tooth. I mean, I don't know. It's just stupid.
I've never heard of green teeth. I mean, that's a new one for me.
Well, later Roberto would be offered a full set of caps for free by dentists that he befriended in the polo world. As a groom, Roberto had access to horses and eventually started training to play polo. Roberto knew it was not easy to earn a living as a polo player. It's kind of like no win, no pay. But he had these steamy romances with wealthy patrons and did make enough to sustain himself.
So once he got them caps, it was on like Donkey Kong, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's a handsome guy.
Because he's handsome, but now he's got white teeth.
He's handsome and he's got an accent.
Because I must play polo.
Yeah. And he's all, muscular and strong.
Oh. Was you looking at pictures?
Maybe.
You see any pictures of when he had green teeth?
No, I didn't.
Oh, I see. It's like a romance novel.
You got white teeth.
You're fantasizing about the Argentinian polo player.
You got a red tooth. I just don't get,
I don't get people who make fun of people, and I don't like it.
I only make fun of people when they deserve it.
Well, yeah, you make fun of me all the time, but
Yeah.
I make fun of you too.
You do.
Yeah.
He used to tease me about having, short legs and
Oh,
stuff.
it's cool. Look at it. It's kick its whole foot.
I know you lowered my podcast chair so that my feet could touch the floor.
Yeah, I know. I'm surprised it goes down that low, honestly.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Polo is an ego-driven macho sport, and patrons are typically providing housing for the players, food, and a little bit of a stipend. And players like Roberto could earn up to $4,000 a month, depending on their handicap. And I guess if you were a superstar player, you could be earning $8,000 to $9,000 a month.
Damn.
But I think at top pay for Roberto was about $4,000 a month.
So he's about middle of the pack as far as how good of a player he is.
Yeah, it was described that he had a 3 handicap. So I guess a bottom rung player would get $1,000 a month, and then you get $1,000 for your each point of a handicap, which I don't even know what that means.
I'm gonna guess your statistics probably,
So he had a 3 handicap, so they gave him $4,000 a month.
how much you score, how many times you score, I'm sure all this.
Look,
stuff
girl
goes
math
in.
is sure. That's sure. that makes sense.
No, but well, hey, look, he was poor from Argentina. If he's making $1,000 a week and being kept, room and board, basically, he's doing pretty good. I mean, hell, I would take that deal now.
Right?
If someone was paying my room
Well,
and
and
board.
you gotta think about, this is like in the 80s. $4,000 a month was pretty good back then.
That's great.
I mean, shit.
$4,000 a month's good now.
I was gonna say, nah, I can barely pay your bills now, but
Well, I'm just saying, for one person, he's not keeping the house up. I mean, he's doing all right. That's like $4 million in today's money.
after Roberto and Suzanne began dating, he traveled to Florida to work the winter season. Suzanne visited him in Oxford, Florida, and they also kept in touch for 6 months through letters and phone calls. In April of 1996, after spending 6 months apart, Roberto returned to Virginia where the pair rekindled their romance. And these are opposite folks, Dylan. I mean, Roberto, he's confident, he's self-assured, outgoing. He held the ticket to social events and everyone invited him to parties and dinners. People really wanted to be around him. He was really fun. Like I said, he was always joking around and stuff. And Suzanne was usually excluded, but Roberto made sure she was on his arm. Like if he went to a party, he made her go.
Now, given your research, do you think he was genuinely into her, or did he kind of maybe think, hey, she's rich and I can maybe, benefit from dating her?
I don't know, Dylan. What? Let me finish telling you the story and then you...
Okay.
And by the end, you tell me what you think. Because I don't really want to ruin it for folks.
Okay.
Now, those around Roberto noticed his relationship with Suzanne seemed to impact his focus and drive that made him the best on the circuit. And when winter of 1996 rolled around, Roberto opted not to go to Florida. So this is the first time he's not traveling for Polo. Instead, he stayed in Virginia and took work picking apples on an orchard for low pay. He was also doing backbreaking farm work for Suzanne. A farm the size of Suzanne's required full-time workers, but she was too cheap to hire proper staff. Suzanne would only pay people as needed. She would hire people for a week or two at a time.
Yeah, and then probably try to negotiate the price that she's going to pay him after the work's done. I know what type of person she is.
Roberto had little time to practice polo as he worked on Suzanne's 350-acre farm. Suzanne also never paid her boyfriend for his work. So Roberto was living like a migrant laborer in a small room on the apple farm, earning extremely low pay for picking apples, and also doing all the work on Suzanne's farm.
Okay, see now, given the question I just asked you, it doesn't make sense because he doesn't.
Well, that's why I said just wait.
He doesn't seem to be, benefiting, even in the least bit of being. It seems like he's almost the opposite of benefiting, benefiting.
Yeah. Issues started to arise between the couple because they had fundamentally different ideas on how the pony should be treated and trained. Like I said, in Argentina, polo ponies are considered another workhorse. Suzanne was overfeeding the horses, treating them as pets, and not exercising them to their full capability. Roberto knew that overweight ponies could get crippling arthritis, and they needed to train to be able to play. When Roberto would exercise the horses how he deemed fit as a player, Suzanne would get upset. In August of 1996, the Cummings visited Ashland Farm and met Roberto for the first time. Samuel Cummings was instantly taken with Roberto. He's a man's man and saw him as the kind of guy who could be the protector of his daughter. The kind of guy that, as a father, he wanted Suzanne to end up with a guy like this.
And he's probably surprised, given her, she's shy and all that stuff. And here's this outgoing, strong, very masculine, boyfriend, I guess.
However, Irmgard didn't approve of the Argentine horseman. She felt that he was not on the level of her daughter, Suzanne. In the fall, Suzanne urged Roberto to move his ponies to Ashland Farm where he would not have to pay a monthly boarding fee. And since Roberto had little money and was not playing polo, this would offer him, the ability to save a good deal of money. And by the way, these horses, he had 7 horses. They were worth about $20,000 each.
Wow.
Suzanne never invited her boyfriend to spend the night at her home. He's got his horses there, and he's only allowed to come to the farm and like visit his horses. He's never allowed to spend the night.
Or do work for her.
Very strange, right? Like, why would you not have your partner spending the night?
Why wouldn't you hook up, bro? Move in together.
Well, that's what everybody wonders is like, why did they not? She never offered him to move into her home. Yeah. In October of 1996, Roberto's father passed away unexpectedly. He traveled to Argentina for the second time in 17 years for the funeral. This left Roberto's mother and sister living in poverty, but without playing polo that season, he had little financial means to help support them. Suzanne's thrifty spending was another point of contention for the couple. Roberto saw how the heiress was an absolute cheapskate. Once, the maid was sweeping leaves from the driveway with this old, worn-out wooden broom that was on its last legs. Roberto knew that she would never get the job done without proper gear, so he went to the hardware store and purchased a $125 leaf blower. When he returned and gave the blower to the maid, Suzanne hears this blower and she freaks out. Suzanne told Roberto there was no need for the new lawn tool and that the broom would suffice.
Well, for one, what's the maid doing outside sweeping leaves out of the... Because obviously, again, she's understaffed, doesn't have the proper people to keep up with all the chores. And, I mean, who in the world...
So not only was Suzanne just like, cheap about things, she was just cheap. Like, she was unwilling to spend money on basic stuff that was needed to run the farm or even take care of the household.
No, it's not. No, I think it goes beyond cheapness. I think she enjoys watching someone do this, task without improper stuff just because that's the way she wants it. You know what I mean? I think she's kind of malicious in that manner. I mean, that's just you don't ask someone to do something for you and not have the proper tools.
That's like telling her to weed eat and handing a pair of scissors to the woman.
Well, I mean, and it's dumb and it's inefficient, and you can't get a good job. I've never understood. I'm always for.
And it's working harder, not smarter.
Yeah, and I'm always for having the right tools for the job.
Well, and if you're paying someone by the hour, wouldn't you rather them spend an hour blowing the leaves than to have to pay them for 8 hours?
Of sweeping the leaves with a broken broom?
And then they're going to have to come back and do it for 4 more days?
It's stupid.
It makes no sense. So in the long run, wouldn't she be better off spending the $125 on the leaf blower?
Yes, it would be cheaper. In the long run, it would be cheaper and more efficient.
Isn't that how girl math works? I don't know. By April of 1997, Suzanne had talked to Roberto about moving closer to the farm. So, he could be there in an instant when she needed something.
Yeah, there's a house for rent down the road.
Yeah.
From the 300-acre estate.
Yeah, that has guest cottages.
Yeah, maybe you can go over there and stay.
Well, Roberto found a room to rent, but of course it needed Suzanne's approval. And the landlady thought it was very odd that this woman had to come, give him the thumbs up on whether or not he could rent this place. It was $400 a month, but Suzanne did pay his rent by checks every month.
Wow, so generous of her.
Roberto, at this point, encouraged Suzanne to form a polo team. They could use Roberto's horses, but he agreed that he wouldn't get paid. Instead, Suzanne would be responsible for paying his rent, buying his food and clothing, and keeping up the care and maintenance of the horses, the truck, and the trailer.
So basically, she will become his patron.
Yeah. The Ashland farm, but without having to pay him.
Right.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
The Ashland farm team, led by Roberto, debuted at Great Meadows. The couple experienced friction as Suzanne was paying for her lover's expenses, yet Roberto was doing all the work with no pay. Suzanne didn't want Roberto riding the horses because they would get too hot, she would tell him.
See, I knew this wasn't going to work because, for one, they don't agree about how the horses are treated, which is going to be a very big point of contention, because they're going to get rode hard and put away wet, right?
And then he would complain that she was overfeeding these horses. You're underworking them. They're getting fat. They're slow. They're not performing. But despite all this, I mean, Roberto seemed enamored with Suzanne and turned down offers to play polo for other sponsors. So, like, during this time, he's getting offers and he's turning them down. By late June, Suzanne was objecting to Roberto returning to the polo circuit. On Sundays, he could make an extra $900 a match playing, but she wanted Roberto at the farm instead because chores needed to be done. She just, like, wants to control this man.
I mean, a lot of times it's the man controlling the woman. Honestly, very seldom in our stories over the years have we talked about a very controlling woman. And I think she certainly exhibits those characteristics.
Then Suzanne decided that she wanted to buy her own polo ponies. Jean-Marie introduced her to a horse breeder that he knew. And this guy usually charged like $60,000 per horse, which was about average. But this guy was willing to sell her these horses for $7,000 a piece, which Jean-Marie was like, bro, this is a steal. But Suzanne insulted this man by offering him $500 each or $1,500 for 3 of the horses. Roberto was exasperated by Susan's frugality. This cringy lowball offer was so embarrassing to Jean-Marie, and he chided her. He's like, this is super rude. You're embarrassing me. Like, I made the introduction.
Well, it was already a hell of a deal.
How dare you?
If they really go for north of $50,000, he's offering to you for, a fraction of that. And then you're going to offer him $500 a piece? I mean,
Suzanne looked for yard sale prices no matter where she was, and all 3 men were just blown away by this outrageous offer. The audacity.
Look, how about I give you $50 for 20 horses?
When friends asked Roberto, like, why do you go out with her? He would say Suzanne had a rough childhood with a cold family, and, quote, she was sent away at 12. Suzanne finally agreed to buy a new tractor for Ashland Farm and ordered an $80,000 tractor on her credit card. Without permission, Roberto, who did the bulk of the work, upgraded this tractor without her knowledge so that the tractor would have air conditioning in the cab and also a radio, but this would cost an additional $10,000. When the bill arrived, Suzanne broke down in tears. Roberto described she almost had a nervous breakdown, because she was going to have to pay extra money. Roberto spent hours on the tractor, much to Suzanne's dismay. She had a cell phone installed in the cab. Roberto would switch it off. He would find a shady spot, park the tractor, listen to music, and take long naps to avoid Suzanne.
Nice.
Despite their issues, Suzanne spoke often of the couple moving to Montana where they could buy land and become rangers. She wanted to save animals from poachers. Suzanne had also been inquiring into travel to Montana, looking at real estate. To his friends, Roberto complained that he was out of shape, he hadn't been playing well, and that his ponies were poorly exercised. Roberto's landlady didn't mention it to him, but Suzanne would drive by the house multiple times a day to check up on him. She would see Suzanne's truck repeatedly driving by the house, even when Roberto was home. She thought and the landlady's name is Virginia, by the way. Virginia thought it was very odd that this heiress was seemingly obsessed with Roberto, but never offered to move him onto the farm or even allow him to spend the night.
Yeah.
Once Suzanne had caught sight of her sister Diana wearing a bikini and suntanning outside. As Roberto rode by on the tractor, Diana had blown him a kiss. Suzanne ran outside to scold Roberto. She chased him into the house and locked him in a bathroom.
This is not okay.
Yeah.
This is not good behavior. It's not good at all.
Well, in July of that year, Suzanne wanted to travel to Europe to visit her ailing father. Roberto declined to join her. He said he wanted to stay in Virginia and play polo. While Suzanne was in Europe, friends like Jean-Marie noted that Roberto's demeanor changed. He seemed more relaxed and happy. He had returned to the old Roberto. Roberto was also seen in the company of other women while Suzanne was overseas. And in a small town like Warrenton, it's likely the news made it back to her. On July 26, after Suzanne had returned from her trip, she confided in her friend, a woman named Jane Rowe, that she was scared of Roberto. This guy, Steven Seeger, who was involved in the Polo world, had an annual cookout. And that's where Suzanne, now, by the way, she's at this cookout with Roberto. Like, they're there like a couple, holding hands,
right,
hanging out. She tells her friend that Roberto is abusive and that he had been berating her and making threats. Roberto had threatened to murder Suzanne. Now, this is the first time anyone has heard news of violence in this relationship. The following day, Suzanne and Jane met with Sergeant Gary Healy to report the abuse. Suzanne refused to speak to the investigator, and Jane Rowe basically relayed everything that Suzanne had told her. According to Jane Rowe, Suzanne had tried ending the affair with Roberto, but he had threatened to kill her. Now, Sergeant Healy noted that Susan's attitude just seemed off. She wasn't speaking. She wasn't really engaging. The 30-year veteran proceeded with caution. He said, quote, "I really need to hear from Mrs. Cummings herself in order to properly assess the situation." Suzanne seemed concerned on the surface, but in this oddly forced manner. She told him there had been one incident of physical abuse and threats, but he found it strange that Suzanne had no security system or bodyguards on the property despite her status and wealth.
Right. See, yeah, I mean, if you're feeling threatened well, step one would be ending the relationship and tell him to clear all his stuff out, right? And she certainly has the means, if she wants to get things to make her more protected.
According to Suzanne, Roberto told her, quote, "I will put a bullet through your head and hang you upside down to let the blood pour on your bed." She added, "Drowning me has also been mentioned several times." Because that seems reasonable. If someone threatens you, they tell you, "I'm going to drown you."
Yeah, I'm going to drown
I'm going
you.
to take you to the river.
Yeah.
Like you're a big Billy Bass fish.
Yeah, and put your head under
The water, yeah.
Yeah.
Sergeant Healy deduced that there had been a love affair with an employee that was not going the way Suzanne had hoped, and that one of them had lost interest, and he felt it was probably Roberto.
Wow, this cop's smart, isn't he?
Suzanne was a woman scorned. He suggested she get a restraining order, which she refused to do. And then Healy suggested she simply fire Roberto and tell him not to return to the property. But this recommendation seemed to make her uncomfortable. Healy then suggested she get a no trespassing order, that she could hang a no trespassing sign, and that filling out this no trespassing order would take only a few minutes. If Roberto returned to the farm, all she had to do was call 911 and he would be arrested. Again, Suzanne says no.
Well, then I'll be like, what are we doing here, folks? What are we doing? What do you want me to do about it? You're not taking any of my advice. You're not doing anything to protect yourself.
Well, I think I know what she was doing.
Well, I know exactly what I think I know exactly what she's doing.
She's laying some groundwork.
She's laying some groundwork.
Now, Jane told the investigator that Roberto was a dangerous man with out-of-state warrants and a lengthy criminal record. Now, it wasn't customary to run a background check on an arbitrary request, but Sergeant Healy did anyway, and there were no hits on Roberto's name. No criminal record, no outstanding warrants, nothing.
But he's from Argentina. I mean, what, they just assume everybody from Argentina is a criminal?
What Sergeant Healy didn't know was that Suzanne had also tried to use her connections to get Roberto deported from the United States. She goes hard.
Yeah, well, she's kind of a bitch.
Yeah.
I mean, for real. I mean, I hate to use that word, honestly. But
she's an old battle axe.
She's an old battle axe. She's an asshole.
Now, the seasoned investigator wasn't buying Suzanne's story, but he told her to go ahead and write a detailed statement. She had stated that they had been dating since spring of 1995, and that only in the last 6 months had Roberto shown signs of aggression. She also wrote that he was afflicted with a mental condition and very dangerous to people around him.
What?
But
I don't want to ask him to leave or get a restraining order,
or take any steps to get rid of him.
or security or anything. But I'm just here to tell you, this guy's a danger.
By mid-August, it was pretty clear that the relationship had fizzled. On September 6th, Roberto was due in Pittsburgh to play polo. Before she left for the trip, Suzanne called her friend Jane, saying that She needed to schedule an appointment with Sergeant Healy to get a restraining order and asked, can you arrange a meeting with him on September 8th?
Hi, Jane. This is Suzanne. Yeah, Roberto's beating me up right now. And I just want to call and let you know that, hold on one second. He hit me. And jeez, dude.
How are you hitting yourself?
This is not sophisticated at all. I mean, for real.
And Suzanne had also not wanted Roberto to play in that polo match, and they had a fight about it. And he was like, bro, I gave my word I would be there. I'm going.
Well, it sounds like he's over Yeah, he's over it.
At the hotel in Pittsburgh, Suzanne had a near meltdown when the clerk hadn't booked the 2 rooms she had asked for. Roberto tried smoothing it over, saying like, oh, it's fine. We can just stay in the 1 room. But Suzanne was insisting they have separate rooms and like made this big fuss about it. At the polo event, witnesses saw Suzanne and Roberto holding hands as if they were still in love. It was on the return drive to Virginia that Suzanne told Roberto she didn't want him to play in the Taste of Argentina, an international match slated for Sunday, September 7th in Baltimore. So it was like the next day he's supposed to play in this match. Roberto had been buzzing about the match for weeks, excited to display his skills for the Argentine ambassador. Roberto was proud of his like rags to success story and wanted to share it with his home country.
So this is a big deal for him.
It's a really big deal for him.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's not your average polo match, you know?
No. Suzanne didn't want Roberto to play in the match, stating that the horses needed to rest after they had played on Saturday. Roberto argued that the plans were set, and that's what the horses are trained to do.
That's what they're for.
Yeah. On Sunday, September 7th, Roberto woke around 7 a.m. and had coffee with his landlady, Virginia. He carried laundry to his room and put it away, and by all accounts, everything was fine. Roberto was in a good mood. Virginia knew he was scheduled to play this important polo match in Baltimore, which is about 2 hours away that afternoon. And over coffee, Roberto had shared that Suzanne had not wanted him to play in Pittsburgh or Baltimore that weekend. As he left, Roberto told her, I'll see you this evening. Around 8:51 a.m., a call came in to the Fauquier County dispatcher. A woman said, yes, I need to report a shot. A man, he's dead. A shot man, he's dead. The woman spoke with an accent, but in a calm tone. She said the body was located at 8714 Holtzclaw Road, also known as Ashland Farm. So this area is known for its well-heeled residences and horse country, a bunch of horse farms, and it's nestled in the rolling hills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. When law enforcement arrived, Suzanne Cummings claimed a man had tried to kill her. No one else was in the house at the time, she claimed. Suzanne said she had been having problems with this man named Roberto Villegas, and that he was lying on the kitchen floor in a pool of blood, which created about a 12-inch halo around the top of his dark head. His face was pressed to the floor, eyes frozen open. He was also wearing jeans and a polo shirt.
The irony.
Deanna Cummings had shown up mid-call to police and found Suzanne in the home speaking to the dispatcher on the phone. Both women were outside when the first deputy arrived at the scene. So the stately manor house was a 2-story home with gray stone and 4 brick chimneys, black shutters, and it's surrounded by about a half dozen small buildings. There's an immaculate barn surrounded by guest cottages and a stable. Cows, thoroughbred horses, and other livestock were in the fields, and there were also several trucks, tractors, and a few cars. By all accounts, Ashland Farm is the quintessential Virginia horse farm. Now, the only sound in the house was the portable television, which was playing on the counter. Apparently, Suzanne had it on Animal Planet 24/7. Sprawled between 2 kitchen chairs, Roberto kind of was just laying out on the floor. His blood sprayed and spattered on the walls. There was also blood stains on the pantry door. Once they secured the crime scene, they took photos of the victim, the gun, and Suzanne's injuries. She had some superficial cuts on her left arm, about a dozen lacerations. She had 5 scrapes on her upper shoulder and about 10 scrapes on her mid-arm area. The next day, Suzanne will visit a doctor who noted a crisscross shape barely visible under her right eye kind of on the cheek. Suzanne's mugshots reveal no facial lacerations or markings, but she suddenly has one when she goes to the doctor.
How's that work?
After Suzanne was photographed, she asked if she could brush her teeth and clean up. A deputy allowed Suzanne inside her bedroom, which, by the way, is very messy. Drawers are pulled out. There's stuff emptied on the floor. The frilly lace bed is covered with stuffed animals, which is kind of strange, right? The pillows were at the foot of the bed, indicating that she slept like opposite in her bed.
Ah, that's the creepiest detail. What the fuck?
I thought it was weird.
With a bunch of stuffed animals?
Suzanne,
and she's laying head to toe. She's laying toe to head.
Sure.
Yeah, that's not right.
Suzanne was washing away gunpowder residue in the bathroom, which I can't believe they allowed her to do this. She changed clothes, and they did put her kids' tennis shoes into an evidence bag along with a t-shirt that had some blood spatter. By 10:05 a.m., Suzanne asked for an attorney. Her sister Deanna had already called Blair Howard, who was famously Lorena Bobbitt's attorney.
Oh.
Deanna told officers that she had gone to the barn between 7 to 7:30 a.m. and had been out in the yard with dogs when she heard 3 loud sounds, like gunshots. At that time, she went into the house where Suzanne was in the office on the telephone with police. Jane Gritz, who was working in the barn, heard a loud popping sound between 8:15 and 8:30. She thought it was a hammer, maybe some kind of construction, and she didn't even leave the barn to go check.
Well, I mean, it's a farm. You hear stuff. You know what I mean? It's out in the country. So even a gunshot's probably not the wildest thing.
I like this lady. She's just staying in her lane. She's minding her own business.
She's figured out a long time ago just to mind your business.
Keep your head down.
Yeah.
Don't look around. Just do what you're told. And yeah. Later, Suzanne will say that Roberto was sitting at the table when she told him he wasn't taking her horses to Baltimore. They're his fucking horses. Oh my God. Angry, he retrieved a knife, took her by the neck, and put the knife in her face. He said, "You fucking piece of shit. No woman is ever going to tell me what to do. I'm going to teach you a lesson."
You fucking piece of shit.
When she finally freed herself from Roberto, and at this point, he's cut her arm.
I'm going to drown you.
These superficial lacerations.
Yeah, and a very part of her body that's, that is, let's say, common for self-inflicted wounds in a situation like this. The mid-arm area,
Suzanne told him that she would make some coffee and they could just forget about the incident. But instead, she grabbed a pistol from the drawer and fired. At the time, she said Roberto's face was angry, red, and that he was coming out of his chair at her. Though Roberto allegedly cut her arm in the scuffle, there was none of Susan's blood anywhere, including on the knife, which was somehow found nestled in the crook of Roberto's elbow. Now, earlier law enforcement had not seen the knife, but 3 hours after arriving, it was resting in his arm. It also seemed unnatural, as if it was implausible that it could have fallen from his hand into this weird spot under, well, actually kind of like on top of his elbow. Yeah.
What? I don't understand what's happening here. I mean, they didn't control the scene. They didn't fully process the body before they went away from the body and came back.
This is an area that doesn't have a lot of murders, Dylan.
I don't care. I don't care if this is your first murder.
They don't really seem to know what they're doing.
Yeah, but I mean, this is the 90s still?
Yeah.
But still, we know about scene integrity at this point, people.
Look, they dropped the ball, bud.
Yeah, we know what it is. You got these rich citizens, and they're allowed to do whatever they want to some poor foreign national from Argentina. White versus brown. We know rich, affluent versus poor. I know exactly what's happening here.
Well, hold your thoughts, because you're probably going to get even more pissed off. Now, the knife was a Bertram cutlery knife with a bone handle and a 6-inch blade. This knife had been one of Roberto's prized possessions. He'd won it at a polo match in Florida, and he was known to use it for everything from cutting rope to slicing an apple to like cutting open a biscuit. Like he used this knife.
So it was his everyday knife.
For everything, yeah. Investigators were shocked to find the manor house in such disarray. It was in disrepair after years of neglect. I mean, it was pretty clear to law enforcement that no one had spent money to update or even restore this property. Doorknobs were old and often stuck, and like investigators could barely even get the doors open because the knobs were so old and shitty. There were cats in nearly every room scurrying around. Several guns were located in the house, including the Walter 88, a .22 caliber that was used to kill Roberto. And it's also the gun that James Bond used.
Oh.
The gun's holster was found upstairs in a closet, and investigators wondered why she would have the gun downstairs but the holster upstairs. So that's a question. There were also 2 plastic baggies found, like in her room, as if they had been taken out of an open drawer. One contained a Swiss Army knife, and the other bag was empty, as if someone had quickly taken contents out of the bag and forgotten to throw it away. Suzanne was charged with murder and use of firearm in the commission of a felony. After meeting with her attorney, Blair Howard, she refused to talk to police. The heiress is held on a $75,000 bond and ordered to surrender her passport and firearms, and was told she had to remain in Virginia. Now, when news spread around Warrenton, the community is divided. Members of the Polo world are stunned and angry. They believed if the tables had been turned, Roberto would be in jail with no bond, and that Suzanne was given a low bail, given her status. And they were just shocked.
Well, I agree with that. Yeah.
But then locals in the community described the Argentine polo players as these like gypsies who, traveled around and slept with women and had low morals.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was kind of divided in that you had some people who were like, this is not okay, and other people who were like, well, these guys are kind of scumbags, so it's not surprising.
Well, now it's okay to be openly racist now during this murder investigation.
Pretty much. Blair Howard spoke to the press right away, saying that Suzanne had acted in self-defense. With no family in the United States, the Worshams, who had acted as Roberto's sponsors and patrons at one point, assumed the role of executor of his estate. Roberto had told them that he had sold Suzanne horses for $20,000, but there was no record of these transactions. Roberto's horse trailer no longer belonged to him. He had no bank account, and the only money he had in his possession was a $900 check from playing polo in Pittsburgh the day before he died. With no money, the Worshams assumed financial responsibility for the funeral. Friends Richard and Patricia Varge offered their home for the reception. Roberto's mallets and boots were arranged on top of his casket. His former girlfriend, Kelly Quinn, came to the funeral. They had kept in close contact even after the breakup, and there was gossip that Roberto had wanted to win her back. His relationship with Suzanne was in an attempt to prove to Kelly that he could stay in one place. Because remember, she wanted to settle down and have kids.
Yeah.
Others knew the breakup with Kelly had sent him into Suzanne's arms, a woman that they didn't think he would otherwise date. A friend delivered the eulogy and said, quote, "He loved the sport of polo and everybody loved him." There was a pretty stark contrast between the two women and their effects on Roberto. With Kelly, he had been independent, in control of his life, very confident. And with Suzanne, Roberto was codependent and almost childlike. He was constantly trying to please Suzanne and making all these concessions to make her happy. The foreign press in particular had a field day painting Roberto's death as this rich American getting away with murder. Many Argentine polo players felt the sentiment. They thought that Suzanne had grown tired of Roberto, the boyfriend, but that she needed the professional polo player, and that she basically had all the power and control in the relationship. One local woman said, quote, "There wouldn't be all this fuss if her daddy didn't have all that money."
Nice.
The Villegas family didn't have enough money to fly Roberto's body home. Argentina's embassy footed the bill, and a fund was established to pay for his burial in Chaja. Despite Suzanne's controlling like Roberto's every move and financial situation, Blair Howard said Roberto had been the controlling one. So their narrative is he's controlling and it was self-defense.
Gaslight much?
Kelly Quinn thought the claims that Roberto was abusive were hogwash. She said, quote, "He was a nice person and he was good to me." Witnesses claimed to see Roberto 1 week before the shooting at a bar in the company of another woman. Suzanne, despite her fear of Roberto, never tried to fire him or have him removed from the property, and they attended events together and held hands as if everything was okay. The friction between Roberto and Suzanne was noted by a friend named Jack Whitmore, who said, quote, "Roberto was a real gaucho, like a cowboy out west. He was a tough player and he was hard on the horses because that's the way they handle them in Argentina." At the initial hearing, the prosecutor had a drastically different version of events from what Blair Howard was saying. Now, Howard said Suzanne could only stop the raging bull, Roberto, with 4 shots into the chest and neck. The prosecution had evidence that Roberto was seated at the table, which was not the most strategic position to attack Suzanne with a knife. He was not advancing at her when the shooting happened. But instead of Roberto being an attacker, he was basically just a house guest settling in for coffee and breakfast that morning. There were 4 shots, which the prosecution argued was not self-defense and sounded more like premeditated murder. The first bullet had torn through Roberto's neck, carotid artery, struck the spine, and burrowed 10 inches down his back.
Wow, that sounds like that's from above. Like he's seated and someone shoots him from an upward angle.
Yeah.
Or a downward angle, rather.
Yet, Suzanne continued shooting even after this initial shot basically killed him.
That shot was certainly a debilitating shot and certainly mortal. And
well, they determined that that would have been the shot that killed him, and yet she still kept shooting. There was wet blood everywhere, yet none of the blood from Suzanne was on this knife. There were no traces of Suzanne's blood anywhere in the house. The prosecution pointed out that just couldn't happen. That if she had been attacked with a knife, her blood had to be somewhere in the house.
Well, yeah.
After the grand jury determined that Suzanne would go to trial, Roberto's landlady said, quote, "She had buffaloed him. She took everything he had." So Blair Howard's plan was to paint Roberto as a violent, temperamental man. He brought forth witnesses who had had altercations or words with Roberto in the past. Despite the prosecution's evidence that Suzanne was not in danger, she was convicted of voluntary manslaughter on May 13th of 1998. She was sentenced to 60 days in jail and $2,500 in fines. She only served 57 days in jail.
What the hell, dude?
Friends and family were angered by the verdict. Roberto's mother and sister filed a wrongful death suit against Suzanne Cummings, as did Robert's illegitimate son, Justin Bonnell, who had been born to a former girlfriend named Margaret Bonnell. They were settled out of court. In the aftermath, Suzanne expressed she didn't understand why she had been painted in such an unflattering light. Suzanne also claimed she didn't know anything about Roberto's horses, though they were housed at her farm. She didn't know what happened to them.
Yeah, I don't know. They're just gone.
Yep.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Man.
But I know she and her sister sold Ashland Farm like in the early 2000s and moved over to the LeBaron farm.
Yeah.
Where her sister built this big farmhouse. And it's been featured in some architectural magazines and such.
Well, I think this is an obvious case of just ultra rich people getting away with murder.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's no other way of saying it. I think it's obvious.
Well, my resources today were A Scorned Woman, written by Lisa Pulitzer, articles from the Washington City paper, Vanity Fair.
What did you think about this when you were researching this story?
Well, I think that Suzanne is some shit.
Yeah.
She's a terrible person. And this is what I think really happened. And, again, this is just my opinion. I think that Suzanne could see the writing on the wall that she's trying to control him.
And he's kind of over it.
And he's over it, and he wants to get back to doing Roberto things like playing polo and whatever.
And he's starting to play even though she doesn't want him to go here and there. He's doing it anyway.
Yeah.
He just went the day before and played in Pittsburgh. She didn't want him to go.
So I think that she could see that she was losing him. Maybe he even broke up with her, but was still trying to maintain like a professional relationship with her or something.
Well, he was so entangled.
Because he was so entangled. They had this polo team together.
His horses
were there. Yeah. And maybe he was trying to figure out a way to break free from her, and had even maybe entertained other women because in his mind this is over.
Right.
And I think she was very controlling and jealous. And we know she has a tendency to stalk people and obsess.
Yeah, if I can't have you, no one else will.
And I think she killed him because she knew he had a foot out the door.
Yeah, well, that's all that bullshit of going with the friend, going to the cops.
I think she was totally laying groundwork because she knew she was going to kill him.
Yeah. I mean, it's so obvious premeditated murder. And even if you do get, because a lot of, very often they will plea down the charges to involuntary manslaughter 60 days.
57 she actually served, Dylan.
And she don't even serve all 60. I've never heard of a sentence that low on manslaughter ever in my life. And some of the most obvious involuntary manslaughter cases ever.
And with this evidence that he was seated when
Yeah.
she shot him, she continued shooting him even after this first shot definitely killed him.
Right. And then she has the superficial wounds at a very accessible part of her body, self-inflicted, obviously.
Well, and I think whatever, she had the Swiss Army knife in a plastic bag and then there was an empty bag. I think she had some other kind of knife that she used to cut herself.
She got rid of it.
And got rid of it.
Yeah. This is a miscarriage of justice.
No, it's terrible.
And it really disgusts me. And so much is on display here. We have rich privilege, white privilege, all that. It's fucking disgusting. And it just goes away. They pay off the family. They pay off whoever needs to be paid. Who was the other? It was his family had a wrongful death suit.
And his 10-year-old son at the time.
Oh, yes, his
Which
illegitimate.
I'm not even sure he knew he had a son. From my research, what I could tell is like this lady he'd had a relationship with and it had ended. And then she said this boy belonged to him. But I don't even know if Roberto knew this was his son or had a relationship with this child. It was never really vetted or fully explained, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
And they just pay him off, get rid of the people, and move on with their life. It's disgusting.
Yeah, but you know what? For someone as cheap as Suzanne, whatever the fuck her name is, having to spend any money probably killed her.
Yeah, but she never paid. She never paid for what she did to that man.
No, she didn't.
Well, thank you I've never ever heard of this story ever.
Yeah, I know.
It's pretty compelling crime story.
It really is. Like I told you, I had a pretty fascinating case to talk about.
Yeah.
I think you're right. This is such a miscarriage of justice. And Roberto did not deserve to be taken out in such a way.
There doesn't sound, no, from nothing you said or none of your research said he was a bad person. He sounded like he was very proud of having come from a very meager means and come to a new country. He's doing the sport he loves, and he's pretty good at it. And he didn't deserve that at all. Nothing you said makes me think that he was a bad or mean person. And I hate that he got tied up with this woman. And this is a very typical
imbalance of power
relationship when you're way too entangled where you can't just, take your bag of clothes and leave because, you worry about your horses and your connections and it's your livelihood. It's not just a game he plays. And it's unfortunate because I think he was definitely trying to get, I agree with you. I think he was definitely trying to disentangle from her and figure a way to get away from her. And I just wish he had been able to do it and maybe done it sooner.
Yep, I agree.
God, what a bitch.
She is. She's a horrible person.
Horrible person.
Just the fact that she's so fucking cheap bothers me.
Yeah, I know, right?
I mean, here you
Like,
are.
you didn't earn that
an
money.
heiress, billions of dollars at your disposal.
Right.
And you're so fucking cheap.
To make people work extra hard for you and all that shit.
Yeah, when you've really never done a damn thing in your life to earn that money, or
Yeah.
I mean, it's money that's been handed to
It's
you.
very, I understand people are have different levels of frugality. Me and you are impulse spenders. We don't, maybe should be more frugal at times. We are more frugal now. But
we're growing up. I'm proud of us.
I'm being forced by this economy to be frugal. But no, but when you have people that didn't earn the money and to be that cheap, it's about control. I mean, that's all it boils down to, that she was a controlling person, she was an asshole, and she was very selfish and all that stuff.
And living in this like broke down house.
When you can fix it.
Like, why would you have this historic manor home that is gorgeous and just let it crumble all around you because you're too fucking cheap to have anything repaired or fixed or replaced?
Yeah. It doesn't make sense.
You got to spend all your money on stuffed animals.
Jesus.
And cat food.
Oh my God.
Anywho.
Oh, all right. Well, thank you for that, Heather. That was another great installment of Mountain Murders. I really appreciate all your hard work. And I can't wait till the next time. And we're a little bit late with this episode, so we will be, on the flip side, we will have a midweek on time this time.
Okay, Dylan.
I just
That's
know it.
Amazing news.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're keeping us on a schedule.
Well, yeah, I'm doing my part.
You meet deadlines with ease.
Dylan's
one to face challenges head on.
it's easy. It's just
It's really good with time management.
It's true. All right.
You're a go-getter.
So what else? What other good attribute do I have? Yeah.
You got a really big head,
Well, it's okay.
right?
Yeah. Well,
I can always find you in a crowd.
if you need
So
somebody,
that's nice.
if you need somebody head-butted, I'm your guy.
You got that going for you. Like I said, I can always find you in a crowd. You're a real standout guy.
I can't find you in a crowd because you're short.
Thanks.
But I did appreciate when I need you to go back to the brighter colors in your hair. Maybe the mohawk, bring the hawk back, because I could always spot you in a crowd then.
That's what you said. You were like, oh, I could just see a hot pink mohawk.
Yeah, the bright green
Look,
or
I'm
hot
trying
pink
to grow my hair
mohawk.
out.
It's
Every
cute.
time I want to shave it, do a hawk, you're like, oh, just leave it. So
But you're doing
I'm
good.
trying to not cut it. It's very hard.
And you're through the fuzzies now, and it's cute.
No, I look like Napoleon Dynamite's grandma.
That's not true.
It's true.
Your hair is cute.
I look like grandma. Was her name Sandy?
On her way to the dunes?
Yeah, I think her name might have been Grandma Sandy. Anyway, I look like her.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I do. This hair is totally grandma.
Your hair's not.
Napoleon
It's
grandma.
hip. When you put some product in it and you muss it up.
Yeah, it looks like Napoleon's grandma. It's terrible. It's terrible. That's why every day I wear a hat, a ball cap.
Baby.
I'm fighting through. I won't leave the house until my hair grows out. Which, by the way, I haven't been on the house in like 2 days.
I was like, you're doing a good job of that.
Maybe I should just go to the gas station or something
Maybe
just
you
to
should
get
just
out.
shave your head and then leave the house.
Okay.
All
Sounds
righty.
good.
Until next time.
Bye, Dylan.
Bye.